Do you still believe the world pays for merit? Then why do the most strategic accumulate, while the most dedicated merely survive? Because wealth is not a reward. It is a game whose rules you have never seen. There is a kind of failure that does not sting, not at first. It is orderly, controlled, quiet, and that is precisely why it can persist for years without being noticed. You evolve, you dedicate effort, you become capable, and yet you remain where you started, not because you lack strength, because you are succeeding in the wrong game. And this is where a question emerges that almost no one can hold for long. What game do you actually believe you are playing? Most respond with refined concepts: career, merit, hard work, integrity, talent. But that is not the game itself. It is the narrative surrounding it. And the real game does not present itself in language. It exposes itself through outcomes. Observe it without illusion. Those who rise are not necessarily the most capable. Those who accumulate wealth are not necessarily the most productive. Those who dominate are not necessarily the most intelligent. This is not unfairness. It is structure. It is intentional. It is the framework of a system operating exactly as it was designed to operate. Machiavelli grasped this long before it was softened by modern interpretation. Power is not grounded in moral virtue. It is rooted in perception, positioning, and control over what others are allowed to perceive. Jung would add the psychological counterpart. The mind clings to what feels comfortable to accept. Because facing the truth demands the abandonment of an entire identity. And the truth is simple, uncomfortable, and direct. If you do not understand what is being negotiated, then you are the asset being traded. The error is not in laziness. It is not in a lack of drive. The error is strategic. You aim to be good without first understanding what the system truly rewards. You refine performance while others refine position. You gather skills while others accumulate leverage. You seek recognition while others shape recognition. You take pride in delivering value, without noticing that value, when not captured, becomes refined servitude. Perhaps you believe you are in a game of competence, when in reality it is a game of access. Perhaps you think it is about effort, when it is about narrative. Perhaps you think it is about productivity, when it is about distribution. And that is why intelligent individuals remain poor. Poor in wealth, in influence, and above all, in autonomy. They follow rules on a board they cannot see. This video is not about getting rich as a fantasy. It is about seeing the invisible mechanism that decides who accumulates, who receives crumbs, and who becomes an efficient piece. At some point here, you will identify the real currency of your environment. You will understand who the arbiters are, which unwritten rules govern decisions, and how someone manipulates this game without exposing themselves, without asking for permission, without begging for recognition. Stop. Do not continue on autopilot. What has been said so far has a specific function: to provoke enough discomfort to break the illusion that the world is a moral judge. If this bothered you, it is because it touched some part that still wants to believe that being good should be enough. And that part, when not controlled, becomes the perfect entry point for the system to use you. Those who want to watch as tourists can leave now. This content is not entertainment. It is repositioning. And repositioning begins with a minimal gesture, public decision, not out of vanity, out of psychological commitment. Subscribe, not as a favor, as selection, as an internal filter. If you cannot handle looking at power without makeup, You cannot handle operating power. Each video here is a step out of the herd, and the herd always pays the price for not understanding the game. Those who made it this far did not get here by chance. They have already stepped into the mental field. Now what is missing is to declare it. In the comments, one sentence, short, direct, without explanation, without story, without justification. I manipulate the game, not myself. Writing this is not aesthetic, it is an internal cut. Whoever writes it crosses the line between hearing and applying. Whoever writes it admits that life is not a courtroom. It is a board. And from that point on, it is no longer possible to pretend not to notice. The law is simple. Most cannot handle it because it destroys the ego's favorite narrative. Wealth goes to those who control the architecture of the game, not to those who play harder. This is not an opinion. It is an observable regularity. Where there is reward, there is a system of incentives. Where there is incentive, there is shaped behavior. And where there is shaped behavior, there is someone defining the mold. Common sense promotes transparency, hard work, and clean intentions. The real system, however, rewards something different. Control over access, control over metrics, control over narrative, and control over distribution. Most people operate as if the world were an examiner evaluating a test. It is not. The world is a market, and markets do not evaluate. They assign value to perceived outcomes and preserve the structures that keep the flow intact. First break. You are not only facing other people, you are facing unseen rules, and unseen rules are not overcome with effort. They are overcome with perception. For Machiavelli, virtue does not mean being virtuous. It means having the capacity to handle circumstances, interpret forces, anticipate shifts, and create advantage even on unstable ground. Fortuna is the external factor, but those who understand the system position themselves to capture it when it appears. Those who do not reduce it to luck and drift back into the herd. The law functions in layers. There is the visible game, what is spoken, defended, preached, and presented as moral and ideal. And there is the real game, what actually produces reward, access, protection, and assent. The visible game says, be competent, be dependable, be available, be modest. The real game asks, who holds the bottleneck? Who controls distribution? Who defines value? Who determines price? Who governs time? Most people lose because they mistake signals for power. They take praise as leverage. They assume being needed is the same as owning. They confuse constant activity with strategic positioning. And the law responds with exact cruelty. If you are only executing, you are labor. If you control a lever, you become the center of gravity. The psychological engine behind this is exact. Power operates through asymmetry of perception. Those who can read without being read dominate the interaction. In economic terms, this translates into pricing. But if your behavior, your limits, and your needs are transparent, your value is driven down. If you are predictable, you are controlled. If you are always available, you are turned into a resource, and a resource does not build wealth. It is used by those who control the structure. Jung would call this the dynamic of the persona. You try to be seen as good, useful, correct, and you repress your own ambition, your own strategic coldness, your own ability to say no. This repressed ambition becomes shadow, and the shadow does not disappear. It is controlled by others. The world does not punish your ambition. It punishes your naivety. Those who assume their own will learn to negotiate. Those who deny their own will become objects of negotiation. The game has a real currency. It is not always direct money. Sometimes it is attention, trust, access, reputation, timing, network, data, audience, distribution channel, control of a scarce resource, and whoever controls the currency controls the direction. It is not the one who works harder who wins. It is the one who operates the currency of the environment and defines how it circulates. That is why the phrases that remain are harsh. Predictability is tactical suicide. Those who deliver value without capturing terms give away their own future. Those who speak too much give away the map. Those who seek to be understood waste time. The game only responds to effects. And above all, those who do not define the game are defined by it. This is the foundation. But a law only becomes reality when someone feels it in their own skin. And there is a type of fall that no one announces, but that everyone recognizes when it arrives. Imagine a common scene. End of the workday. Cold office light. Screens shutting off one by one. The figure here is not a hero. He is an archetype, the quietly capable one. The one who resolves, the one who sustains the team, the one who always figures it out. He is valued, he is dependable, he is essential, and precisely because of that, he is held exactly where he is most useful. For a long time, he assumed the game was about performance. Each delivery served as evidence. Every late night felt like an ethical investment. Every issue solved seemed like upward movement. Then the breaking point arrives. Someone advances. Not the most skilled, not the most technical, not the most hard-working. The one who advances is the one who understands the current. The one who sets the agenda, speaks at the right time, aligns with decision-makers, safeguards their image, selects their battles, positions themselves at the center of the narrative. The shift does not feel like tragedy. It feels like clarity. He sees that the more capable he becomes, the more responsibility he is given, and the less influence he holds. He sees that efficiency was rewarded with pressure. He sees that the trust placed in him was, in part, a structure of dependency. He was not elevated upward. He was anchored in place through recognition. Then comes the quiet humiliation. He looks back and recognizes that most of his choices were made to preserve an image. The image of the good one, the correct one, the useful one, the reliable one. He failed to notice he was playing for approval inside a game governed by power. From that point on, pain ceases to be suffering and becomes data. The realization unfolds in silence, not emotion. He understands that he was not overcome by people. He was outplayed by rules he did not perceive. He mistook value for ownership. He mistook being needed for having control. He mistook internal reputation for real leverage. And most importantly, he understands that the system did not neglect to reward him. It rewarded him exactly as it rewards its pieces, through utilization. This is the point of symbolic death. Not the death of the desire to win, but the death of a naive way of playing. He eliminates two things: the need for recognition and the belief that outcomes are governed by fairness. He does not turn bitter. He becomes clear, and clarity produces an immediate consequence. He stops exposing himself. When he returns to the game, he returns different, not as someone asking for validation, as someone who chooses terms. He begins to observe what he previously ignored. Who decides, who influences, which bottleneck blocks the flow, where information circulates, who controls access, which metrics matter, and which are theater. He does not need to shout. He does not need to prove, he needs to reposition, and the law is confirmed. The fall did not come from outside. It came from the fact that he was playing a game that did not exist. The collapse did not save him. It only forced him to see, and those who see do not return to being a piece in the same way. The question now is not what happened. It is what to do with it. Because seeing the board is only the beginning. The next stage requires a method. So the method begins with a discipline that almost no one practices because it requires abandoning pride, diagnosing the real game before acting. First step: identify the currency. Every arena has a real currency, something that buys power in that environment. In some places, it is revenue. In others, it is attention. In others, it is access to decisions. In others, it is public reputation. In others, it is control of distribution. Who has audience, channel, list, community, data, relationship with buyers? Ask coldly, what here generates measurable reward? What opens doors? What buys protection? The real currency is rarely what public discourse says it is. Warren Buffett did not get rich by being the best analyst in the room. He got rich by controlling the flow of capital, choosing when to enter, when to exit, and which assets to buy before market perception caught up. He operated the currency of the environment before everyone else even named that currency. Second step: identify the referees. Who decides what counts as victory? Who defines metrics? Who controls budget, promotion, contracts, invitations, partnerships, visibility? Sometimes it is one person. Sometimes it is a group. Sometimes it is an algorithm. The common mistake is to fight to impress those who arbitrate nothing. The game does not pay intention. The game pays decision. If you are trying to convince someone who has no power to say yes, you are spending energy in the wrong place. Ultra-realistic cinematic Renaissance realism, 16:9 horizontal. Modern large sensor digital capture, physically accurate candle and oil lamp lighting, realistic rendering of parchment, velvet, skin, ink, wood, and stone in low light. No stylized contrast, no fantasy glow, no artificial clarity. A king is framed in a side-front, low-angle close-up from the upper torso upward, with a blurred map edge and dispatch parchment partially occupying the lower foreground, inside the hall where campaign orders and sealed night dispatches await departure at dawn. He wears deep indigo velvet embroidered densely with gold thread command insignia and dynastic emblems across the chest and shoulders. The velvet must feel thick, dry, and expensive, with visible nap shifts, seam structure, and natural bunching where the chest and shoulder meet. His white rough collar rises high and severe, the pleats sharply shadowed within and warm at the edges. His hair is tightly curled and lightly powdered. His face must show authority and fatigue without theatrical exaggeration. Pores visible across the nose and cheek, subtle under-eye darkness, fine lines at the outer eye, realistic skin texture across the forehead, warm sidelight defining the cheekbone and jaw, and natural dryness around the lips. Behind him, dispatch maps spread across the oak table show parchment fibers, fold lines, wax strips, and painted rotes. Brass lamp cups and knife handles catch tiny warm highlights. The rear stone wall is rough and pale, partially illuminated by oil lamps, while deeper recesses fall into cool darkness. The room should feel tactical, disciplined, and sleepless. In work and career, stop being the best invisible doer and start operating a point the team cannot ignore. In business, stop believing that a perfect product is enough and start mastering distribution, offer, and terms. In digital presence, stop chasing applause and start building structure. Attention converted into assets, audience converted into channel, channel converted into recurrence. In any arena, the rule is the same. Do not work to be liked. Work to be necessary at the right point and owner of the term. Maintain the internal hierarchy, control first, reading second, minimal action third. Without control, all action is noise. Those who act before reading act at a disadvantage. Those who speak before seeing expose themselves. The method is not aggressive, it is surgical. You do not need to destroy anyone. You need to stop offering yourself as currency. Those who apply this long enough begin to change, not in mood, in posture. And this change has a cost that most do not expect. Transformation does not appear as happiness. It appears as a change in posture. You speak less because you understand that speaking is exposure. You promise less because you understand that a promise is a leash. You explain yourself less because you understand that constant explanation is an attempt to buy approval. Instead, you operate with precision. You choose where to place energy. You choose whom to negotiate with. You choose what kind of game is worth your time. The new state is observable. You become someone difficult to manage through emotion. The environment realizes it can no longer move you with praise, guilt, urgency, or fear. You do not react on impulse. You pause. And in that pause, you read. The old you wanted to be understood. The new you wants to be effective. Before, you delivered value and expected recognition. Now you deliver value only with clear terms. Before, you tried to win by being good. Now you win by being strategically positioned. There is a price to this. Those who once relied on you will label your shift as coldness. Manipulative individuals will probe you with small provocations. They cannot tolerate someone who refuses to react. Some people will pull away because before, proximity to you meant unrestricted access. And that is part of the transition. Becoming more selective reduces social ease, but it builds stability. You lose the comforting illusion that everyone is on your side, but you gain the capacity to act without seeking approval. There is a pattern almost never acknowledged. Those who begin changing in this direction realize that the most vocal people around them were often the ones who benefited the most from their predictability. The noise is not opposition to who you are becoming. It is a response to losing easy access. At its essence, transformation is this. You stop functioning as something readily available and become something scarce. Not from arrogance, from structure. You become someone who understands the dynamics and therefore no longer gets trapped inside them. And when you arrive at this stage, what follows is not guidance. It is a summons. No discussion, no embellishment. Wealth is not a reward, it is positioning. And positioning does not come from hope. It comes from perception, leverage, and terms. Power does not declare itself. It installs itself. Those who shape incentives shape outcomes. Those who regulate access regulate flow. Those who define the narrative define perceived value. Those who command distribution command the surrounding market. None of this was about being right or wrong. It was about no longer being naive. It was about recognizing that the world does not compensate moral virtue. It compensates strategic usefulness and structural advantage. And once you see it, you cannot reverse it. You become accountable for how you choose to play. Most will keep mistaking the conversation for the game itself. They will keep providing value without securing terms. They will keep waiting to be recognized for their effort. They will remain the most efficient piece on the board, without ever realizing that efficiency alone never elevates anyone. You can be different. But this is not motivation. It is a cold choice. And a cold choice requires cold commitment, so the seal returns. Not as an aesthetic ritual, as a selective filter. Do not write if you still need to explain yourself. Do not write if you still want approval. Write only if you have understood the law and accept the discipline. In the comments, the mantra, one sentence, no justification. I manipulate the game, not myself. The training does not end here. From this point on, attention is not enough. The rest is practice. Read the currency, identify referees, master bottlenecks, build leverage, define terms, and sustain the coldness required not to return to being currency in a game you pretend not to see. The rest is silence and position. Comment. Subscribe. The next videos are already on the screen. Continue your mental training